How did you get your first 1,000 users? That's, every entrepreneur has that question. You made the app, you developed it. Now, who were these people using it? This was in 2012 when it was launched, 2013?
Well, 2010 was when we had the first event. May 2010, yeah, so our 10-year anniversary is coming up pretty soon. The first event was about 250 people. And we got a piece of press in the Times newspaper in the UK, and the headline was The Expert's Expert, Britain's top meditation guru, which Andy hated more than anything in the world. But it was brilliant. It kind of set up the whole premise for the vision and the kind of the project. And it also sold some tickets to the first event. But I think also what it did was it brought a load of publishers out that were interested in Andy's backstory, and we managed to create a 3-book deal from Hodder and Staunton off the back of it. So it was really those two, the piece of press, that first piece of press, the events, that got us to our first few thousand, because we used to put those events on every 4 to 6 weeks. And it was, look, hindsight's no sight, but I think it was really, sometimes unscalable ways to work out how to solve problems are actually really useful. So what I mean by that is events are really difficult to scale, but actually we learn a huge amount by being able to speak to people. So we spoke to every single person that came to those events. What did you like? What didn't you like? What did you find hard? And that, I think Andy's clinic time, plus that, all of that feedback went into the app. So when we actually launched the app in 2012, we had a lot of information and kind of know-how about what that product could look and feel like. Yeah.
And then the first 1,000 users were from these clinics and these events that you had done over the past 2 years?
All from events, yeah.
And now the more difficult question is, how did you actually retain these users?
Well, I mean, that's a constant battle, like, still. But I think the first app, when we launched it in 2012, the Guardian newspaper, they put 1 million booklets, which were like 10 easy steps to meditate, on the front of every single Guardian newspaper on the first weekend in January, which is the biggest kind of New Year, New You partnership, and it promoted the subscription. And that was a massive part of us being a successful business, I would say.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the retention question. So I doubt there's anyone here that used Headspace all the way back in 2012, 2013, version 1. I doubt it. So version 1 was a 365-day journey.
Actually, I've used it.
Oh, you have?
I have. I downloaded that app now I remember the 365 journey.
Okay, yeah. So in a way, I mean, it was an interesting approach to retention. And once you started the journey and you got on the train, you either stayed on the train or you...
And would I remember the first week was free, or the first 10 days were free?
First 10 days.
First 10 days, right? And after this was all paid.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I think we learned a lot from that. And, I think on the one hand, it's a great way of keeping people engaged. A year-long course, it feels kind of substantial and people kind of become very committed. What we discovered, though, was that not everybody, let's say I was dealing with relationships in month 6. If someone had a problem with their relationship, they didn't want to wait 6 months in order to kind of work out how to deal with that. So we had to come up with a more sort of modular type program. But I do think, whether it was the clinic that I used to work in, whether it was the events, or whether it was version 1 of the app, in those early days, we learned a huge amount. And I think we didn't rule anything out either. I think we both had really open minds as to what it could be. We didn't go into it thinking that we knew what it would be. We're kind of just really interested to learn. And I think hopefully we still sort of maintain that in the culture of Headspace.
And what were the hurdles? I mean, this is seeming like a really sort of Zen journey through meditation and business and development. But, all entrepreneurs know it's not really like that. There are some really, really testing points that come. So we'd love to hear what these struggles were.
How long do you have? Yeah. I mean, look.
Top three.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's starting starting anything takes a lot of energy and a lot of effort. I do feel like this is, and Rich can go into a bit more detail about the specific challenges of running a business, but I do feel like this is a little bit different. Rich and I have always said, kind of, this isn't something that we kind of created. We feel like it's something that we're part of. Meditation's been around for a few thousand years. We didn't invent it. And all we were really trying to do was to share what I had learned. So it kind of felt like, and I know this might sound a bit, out there, but it kind of felt like there was a lot of momentum already there. And we were kind of getting on this train that was already kind of moving. So I do feel in that sense, it's been, and we're just both eternal optimists as well. We just believe that anything is possible. And I think if you have that feeling that the wind is already at your back and you believe that anything is possible, then there's a pretty good chance that you're going to pull it off. But Richie?
I mean, so many things. It's difficult to know, but it's so, because they're still going on as well. I'd say the really hard thing was trying to convince people to give us money at the start.
Pay after 10 days.
Well, no, actually just for people to
the investment.
The investment.
To get going.
Because when we would speak to people about this idea, people would physically back away from us they would be like, oh, that's interesting. And they would kind of walk off. And maybe that was about Andy and I rather than the idea. But it was very challenging to get people to actually sign a check to say, yeah, we believe in this. We were trying to raise £500,000 in the early days, and we managed to get £50,000. So we were like, okay, what can we do with that? But actually scarcity actually forces you to be really creative. And I think that I actually still look at that first 18 months, 2 years as probably my favorite time in the whole history of Headspace, because it was purely creative and you just had to make it up as you were going along. And there's something terrifying and brilliant about that experience. But I'd say that was a really difficult thing. I'd say, when we first moved to America, Andy got diagnosed with cancer. So it was myself, Andy, one of the interns that worked for us moved over to America, and we had a team of about 10 people in the UK. We were building the second version of the app. And Andy we'd only been there 5 weeks.
It's tricky.
Yeah. So that was mainly for Andy and his wife. But that was a really challenging time. I'd say the hardest thing and the ongoing challenge is how do you scale a culture and a business when you're very vision driven? There's real tension in that. I think healthy tension a lot of the time. But that has been, we're almost like 300 people now. So it's scaling the things that have been really important to us right from the start. I think that's probably the thing we found personally the hardest, would you say?
Yeah, I would. I think Headspace as a project naturally brings in, and it's gone through different phases, I think. So when we started off, we were really naive. We're not business people, And, so we said, okay, well, anyone who works here, they have to be meditators. I mean, that's how naive we were. And then we suddenly realized that, well, we couldn't get the best people because often the best people didn't meditate. So we had to sort of compromise a little bit on that. And then over time, kind of a lot of the people who came to work for Headspace were, I guess, similar to Rich's background, kind of brilliant people in different industries who'd kind of burnt out and were looking for a different type of work. So all of a sudden we became this company where it was lots of people who had gone through burnout. And who kind of recovered, but they had a different kind of attitude towards work.
And maybe used Axe deodorant.
They smelled that way.
So they expected, I think, to show up at Headspace and for it all just to be very peaceful and very zen and not to have to work very much. So to try and kind of find a balance where you're bringing in the best talent in the world and keeping them really motivated, but never losing sight of the vision to improve the health and happiness of the world is actually a really delicate balance. And of course, the bigger it gets, the harder it becomes. So I'd say that's been the toughest thing for both of us.